He also gets a deeper perspective, being honest with Moira about the dangers of Shaw and working together with her, treating her seriously and being supportive of her. He actually becomes less sexist. I hate this movie. After this, he really becomes a responsible leader and is warm to Hank and works responsibly with the CA and responsibly going after Shaw. And he becomes more sensitive when he sees the pain Magneto has felt, and he comforts him, and he then comforts Magneto and is more compassionate, and he knows he needs help, and also becomes more responsible, not controlling his mind, but he, like with Mystique, doesn't use it on other mutants, nor to control people's actions unless necessary, but he is a little prejudiced, like Magneto in the original trilogy, or like Shaw is here. This adds even more three-dimensionality to his character, and he becomes independent from the CEA under the influence of Magneto, being more secure, working in secret, but also being more discriminating of humans. Oh. You know what? I make so many reviews and everything, and I think a lot of reviews out there are actually pretty boring. I mean, they spend all this time talking about things like character development and acting, so I don't think anyone, I mean, you guys have totally lost your souls a long time ago, right? I mean, you're actually, like, what, watching a review of a movie instead of just watching a movie? How did this even become a business? So I'm just gonna... Hey, don't fast forward. You decided to watch this video, so when you say A, you have to say B. That's the same way that if you thought like, hey, I'm gonna support a party that is socialist and nationalist, you should support the Holocaust. That's just being consistent. Asshole. No, really, stop. I'm just trying to get a nip here. You know, I'm kind of tired, I'm kind of sick. I really don't need this right now. Alright, I'll go through with the review. You know, you're really a constipated ale. Or maybe you're a laxated ale. I'm not very good at English. You know what? Just this. Let's just leave it at that. But he also allows mutants with non-mutant parents to join in. And I think only pure-blood mutants should become members. But of course, I got kicked out for this. But I left my beast in the chamber. Yeah, a cat. Yeah, the pet store was full out of giant snakes. Again, this! Again! Loses Cerebro and becomes very determined and also cautious, keeping their powers a secret, and really enjoys helping mutants and becomes more idealistic and selfless, making his main goal helping the other mutants, but he still trusts the government. You know, that's good, you know, because they're democratically elected, you know. It's like we stand for the people, and he then acts loyal, going after Magneto when he decides to go after Frost, and he discovers his students aren't perfect as they ruined the room they stayed in, and that reminds me of my training, only it was a training for the Death Eater Squad. Their punishments are more severe. And he is frustrated, and after he sees they get in danger, he almost gives up, but Magneto tells him he needs to learn to trust team as they need him, and he becomes more trusting of his team, and he becomes more optimistic, encouraging, relaxed, yet spiritual. But he stays understanding of Mystique, finding the world's being more important than Mystique, and threatening to read her mind, when she's very upset about Hank wanted to cure her and him not understanding her. And this really makes for a complex character arc. As you can see, it's very thick and well developed. And that makes this like a great film, you know, unlike those last two disappointing X-Men films. You know, I mean, they suck. I mean, who would like those? Like who would have praise for those? And eventually... I've got the feeling something horrible just happened. Did anybody post a negative comment about the underrated X-Men Last Stand of Wolverine? I don't seem to be able to find any, so eventually his team succeeds, but he sees he cannot help Magneto and has failed Mystique, and so he reads her mind and gives up on her, and admits he made a lot of promises he couldn't keep. He admits his mistakes and becomes more careful and calmer, and begins his school, and he becomes pragmatic and also makes very wrong sacrifices, erasing the memory of the woman he loves. And he really grew to love her by gaining this deeper perspective, which also caused her to love him, making it all the sadder that he erases the memory of a woman he grew to be honest with, whose love he earned by really caring for her. This was really poignant, sad, and three-dimensional. And he really has a great character arc, as we really see he used to make a lot of the mistakes he's cautious about in the original trilogy. This is very smart. It's a very old story, but it just works very well. It's a classic one. It's a very good old story that's done in a very fresh way here. It's showing that the old white master used to be very corrupt and learned his lessons about being cautious and about being disciplined in the harsh way, abusing his powers, and he's here careless, and we see all his carelessness in him being insensitive, and we see that he grows a lot into the person as we saw in the original trilogy. And this is actually very similar to how they handled Obi-Wan earlier in the 2000s in the Star Wars prequels. Yes, I'm still on that. Yes, Star Wars prequels were great, and I'm now gonna positively compare something to the Star Wars prequels. Get over it. Yeah. We discover he does a lot of things that he will condemn later, and we see how he became so wise through harsh learning, which is similar to how Obi-Wan just mindlessly follows the council in episode 1 and doesn't really rely on his own wisdom. He doesn't really follow his heart, and he's too critical, and this hurts Anakin. Qui-Gon was really willing to train Anakin as he saw the potential in him and was a fatherly figure, while Obi-Wan was too harsh, and this is part of the reason that he became so corrupt and frustrated and was more vulnerable to the dark side. And we see then that at the end of episode 3 he had already started to become wiser, but it was kind of too late. And then when he saw how he hurt Anakin, he became more cautious and wise and understanding, and then we see he will go to be trained by Qui-Gon's ghost, and then we see in episode 4 that he is, as the way that Qui-Gon is in episode 1, he has become wise and he thinks for himself and he defends Luke against Yoda. And here we see the similar thing. Okay, that was a little bit long and but the point is, here we see he really knows what he's talking about when he talks about the dangers of power abuse in the original trilogy, similar to how Obi-Wan knows what he's talking about when he thinks they should put trust in Luke, because he knows they didn't do that with Anakin. It really makes for a tragic backstory. He wasn't just always wise, he wasn't born a saint. No, it's a lot more three-dimensional than that, and it's very natural. People who are the most cautious of evil are people who've met it in some way. Most of the time, it's not a generalization. But Mystique is done very well in my opinion as well. She got praise from Captain Logan, and it is deserved. I think the blockbuster film Mr. Adam are wrong criticizing her in this film. So a question, are you Catholics? It is important because it will be relevant when the day of judgment comes. When you will arrive, tied up, and will choose what torture to inflict. That is. She's deep and likable and has a detailed backstory. And has a complex arc. She's warm and supportive, really loyal to Xavier, friendly, brave, and also proactive, showing off her powers to prove Xavier isn't a spy, but also insecure and unconfident. And Xavier doesn't understand her insecurities and wants her to hide who she is, and she's frustrated and jealous, yet playful, witty and comforting, and how nice she is to Beast. And the Blockbuster complains she whines a lot, but that's because she's still in conflict of which side to pick and whether to hide, and be proud. And she is younger, and as well, so she's less experienced, and then you're also more full of angst. That's the point of the character arc and a character transformation. I mean, it's kind of a silly criticism. It would be like if people complained that Anakin Skywalker was a whiny bitch before he became Darth Vader and thereby ruined the character, even though he's supposed to be a good guy who's gonna turn evil, not just because he chooses to, but due to frustration. So there will first be conflict before he becomes evil, in which he doesn't threaten people or just act aggressive and badass because he still wants to be good but is conflicted, and of course he would then show off a whiny side because he's vulnerable and eventually turns evil, especially when his son was just as whiny in the original. I mean, that would just be silly. I mean, imagine that, Luke was just as whiny in the original trilogy. He was constantly whining in both episodes 4 and 5, and now people would all of a sudden complain that he was whining. This is like that. But at least people didn't complain about that with Anakin. He comments Mystique was a lot tougher in the original films, but there she has decided to be against the world and is inward. Also, she's jokey here and can be as smart as like when she claims to Xavier she just couldn't control her powers, even though she clearly could, and shape-shifting into an older form of herself. She's also sexy, and at the end is very helpful during the fight. And Phil Mr. Adam complains it was dumb they made her Xavier's long-lost sister, but it makes both characters warmer and have a brighter past that went badly, and we don't see them together that much in the original trilogy. And he comments why Mystique would poison Xavier when she loved him, well, because she slowly became more obsessed with the cause. We see her become very angry at him, and like in real life, after you at first have a nice breakup, you can slowly become more resentful, and this leaves things up for the next couple of films to show how this further transforms. So my point to you both is fuck you! Nah, just kidding. You're great critics. I just love saying fuck you a whole fuck you lot. No, not fucking lot, a whole fuck you lot. Go do it yourself. And she also has a deep arc in this film. At first she's afraid people will fear her and hides herself from everyone except Charles, and she's frustrated that he compliments a girl on her mutation. She's passive, aggressive, and also needs reassuring from Xavier that he would date her in a true form, and although at first he accepts the hypothetical that she wouldn't be his sister when she brings up her true form, he all of a sudden dodges the question. She's actually very open-minded, liking B's mutation, yet at first wants to remove her powers, and is pragmatic. She wants to cure herself, and Filmmaster Adam calls her bipolar, that after just one talk with Magneto she would immediately change her mind, but from the beginning she wanted to be free, she just didn't dare to do so, and when she showed herself to the CA, she already became more open, and when she saw the beauty in Hank's mutation, she saw the beauty in hers, and she became more self-appreciating, and when hanging out with the other mutants, she became more self-confident. Magneto simply made her realize she was wasting her powers, and showed her that she could focus them a lot better, and that if he had her powers, he would have nothing changed about it. And that wasn't in fact the only scene. There was first a scene where he tells her that he wouldn't change a thing and that he already starts to doubt the idea, but at first she still is interested in Hank. But then he also confronts her with the fact that it will be a lot more difficult to fight and survive when she constantly tries to look normal. So there were actually even two very important scenes commenting on it, and we saw slowly her pondering on it, and at first still focusing on Hank, but it's slowly getting through to her more and more. And also she first just doubts it and talks with Hank about it, and by him trying to convince her to go through with it, she realizes she's just doing this because the world would hate her, and while he's trying to convince her and do it, and she doesn't feel comforted by him, and due to this she feels hurt and only wants it less and less, and she then becomes more interested in Magneto, but at first still is afraid to show her true self, and he then convinces her to not cover herself up, and then she only then adopts the motto mutant and proud. And in fact, Hank not finding her true self beautiful was also important. She was always doubting what she wanted. Magneto's talks with her just helped her, and even then, she's at first doubtful and talks with Hank, and after that, she also at first still uses her human form to seduce Magneto, and she feels appreciated by him, and thinks she found someone who loves her the way she is, and then when he compliments her on the true form, then she only starts to fully believe in Magneto's cause, and she still first talks with Xavier. It is really well developed, and then when Xavier's this to Mystique, then she becomes totally against him and decides his natural form is beautiful and becomes totally obsessive to join Magneto's cause. And what's also very interesting is that, like in real life, an inferiority complex becomes a superiority complex. Believe me, I know. I have a sister with a lot of problems. Anywho, so Mystique is very well done. Captain Logan justly praises her, but still asks why she can't wear clothes. Well, I think psychologists would call it overcompensating. She now goes around totally naked to overcompensate for the fact that she totally had to hide. Believe me, I know. Also, he's right pointing out that the cover-up for the aging consistencies with the original trilogy, where she would now be in her late 50s, makes little sense. Why would she age half as quickly to adulthood when she became a teenager at a regular speed? Also, Hank as Beast is great. Filmmaster Adam justly praises him. He's smart, witty, but also insecure, pragmatic, cold and awkward, but also love-struck and a bit playful and sad. And the Blockbuster Buster complains he just has weird feet and is a whiner because it's just a very small mutation and he shouldn't be all too afraid of people judging him, but people can be very judgmental about very minor things. Being someone with Tourette and tics because of that, I know. People can be very judgmental about very small things. Yeah, believe me. If you just have that kind of sucks. So if you have got weird feet, you better never show them in the shower or something or anywhere, or people can be mean about it. Believe me, especially in the 60s, people could be incredibly harsh. So it's incredibly understandable. He would just be insecure about it. And Mystique loves him as she is a fellow mutant. Yes, he comments that Mystique would like him, so that therefore that shows that people would love him and he's just whining for no reason. But Mystique is a fellow mutant. He's still afraid that regular people won't accept him, and for a lot of people that's just important. Beast wants to be loved by society, and when he's Beast, he's also hot-headed and frustrated, but also helpful and proactive. He's very complex. But how can someone ever not love Mystique? That blue form is so sexy. Why do you think they call it blue movies? It is a wonderful color, and the tits are big, but not too big. Yeah, I like them natural. And look at that ass and Tourette, honest and proud. Also, I would like her to shapeshift. I mean, imagine what form she could take on. Scarlett Johansson with the face of Bill Murray. Again, don't judge me.